Welcome to the September Living Show. I'm Gary B.
And I'm Terry D.
This is the show for us 50-plus and baby boomers, for active seniors and the not-so-active as well.
And for you younger caregiving heroes and family decision-makers out there, too. Get the answers you need. Enjoy great guests, including authors, national experts on travel, shopping, aging in place, health and fitness,
family, finance, legal issues, veterans, the economy, home and garden, and sports. Hey, we always have fun covering topics of the past, present, and future.
We are here for you to have fun, but also be helpful as we can in addressing your personal and family concerns.
September Living, the fun, informational resource you can trust. We're happy to have you with us today. Sit back and enjoy the September Living Show.
Welcome to September Living, the show where every week our guests talk about interesting facts just for us baby boomers and beyond. I'm Terry D, alongside my broadcast partner, Gary B.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We got the day covered.
We do indeed, Gary B. How are you today?
I am doing super. I'm looking forward to speaking with our guest today. I think individuals out there are going to be really interested to hear what Catherine Owens has to say concerning really understanding the process. What we're talking about is your care, and I'm going to let naturally Catherine speak more about this, but as we get older and different home cares, a lot of individuals don't understand how you should look at what is the process. How should you understand the process of home care later on in life and assistant living? So I'm anxious to chat with Catherine concerning these issues.
Well, Gary B., I am too. We're so fortunate to have her, and Catherine's an expert. She's an author as well, and I'd like to introduce Catherine. Are you with us?
I am. Thank you for having me, Terry and Gary.
Well, thanks for being with us this morning. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about you to start off with?
Well, I have had the fortune of working in the senior living industry for the past 10 years. I have worked in many capacities, one-on-one with families as they've gone through decisions. I've also worked with different companies in the consulting arena. I've worked with sales teams and also done some training with different teams on how to help individuals go through this difficult decision process.
There's a lot to it, isn't there?
There is quite a bit.
And I think, first of all, Catherine, we want to kind of hit on your book here because we're going to speak a lot about your book, which is very interesting, and speak a little bit about that. And the name of the book, first of all, is Be Your Own Hero, Senior Living Decisions Simplified. Chat a little bit about that, Catherine.
Well, I published this book last year, and it's something that over probably the last 5 years in working with families, I've really felt that there was a need for an easy to understand but effective resource for families. Most of the time, people wait until there's an emergency to really look into the different services available. And what I found is because people have waited, they don't know where to start. They don't know what questions they should be asking. They don't know what services they should be looking into. So Be Your Own Hero really is meant to be a tool and a resource for seniors and their families as they begin the decision process, as well as hopefully it's a way to get people to be more proactive in their education on what's available and to really start having discussions as a family so everybody understands what their wants and desires are as they begin to age and need additional services.
Perfectly put, and I love your definition, and I want the listeners to really listen to each word because I know you probably took a long time to think about this. What is the definition of a hero? A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. That is just incredible. That is a great sentence there.
Well, thank you. It's something I've realized along the way is as much as I or any other senior living professional wants to help people be proactive and make safe and good decisions, there has to be a motivation within the individual to see seek help, to want help, to want to continue living the best quality of life possible.
Yeah, and again, that quotation that I just read naturally came from an individual who portrayed Superman, Christopher Reeve. That's a very nice, again, a very eloquent statement, and it really hits home quite a bit.
And Catherine, this all hits very close to home with me, being in the aging in place industry myself. I understand about the reactionary versus being proactive, but can you address or point out some of the stigmas surrounding senior living?
Definitely. I would say probably the number one stigma or misconception associated with any senior services is that the notion that to maintain independence, one has to stay in their home. This is something that is a real fear for people. They fear that by moving from their home, that they're going to lose control of day-to-day decisions, they're going to lose independence or a perceived idea of independence. Oftentimes, when I meet with someone, that's one of the first things they state. And a question that I give to people in return, just to get them to start thinking about it, is what does independence mean to them? And also, what are they independently doing for themselves? Because more often than not, when I meet with someone, they're typically at a point where their situation is no longer working, and they've had a lot of different resources or family members managing most of their day-to-day needs. And so really they're not independently managing their day.
We're speaking with Catherine Owens. Catherine Owens is an author of Be Your Own Hero, Senior Living Decisions Simplified. And Catherine, I think this is a great first topic for us to be talking about, because I can tell you a lot of people, in fact, so many of them that I speak with, and I try and keep people at home as long as I can, or as long as they can stay at home. But, at some point, people find that they do need to have to go elsewhere for various different reasons. And the concern has always been, well, we're going to lose our independence. They're not going to let us do this, or they're going to make all of our decisions, or they're going to have all the control. So I think you've touched on something that's so important. How do people, what sort of things do you help them to empower them to understand that they have their own control and their own power to do things, even if they're outside of their own home?
It's interesting because when I start having people tell me about their day-to-day situation and how they're managing their day-to-day situation, a lot of times if they've started to bring in multiple services, they're realizing that they're kind of at the mercy of when someone can provide help or when someone will be there to, let's say, provide transportation assistance or bring meals. Making a decision sometimes to go into a community actually gives people a level of independence back, because now they're deciding what they're going to eat, when they're going to go places. They're back to making control of their decisions. And the whole misconception of being in control and losing independence, by being proactive, by educating yourself, by deciding ahead of time what you want, if that time comes that you need additional support, that is actually taking control. By waiting until an emergency rises, you lose control because now you're basing your decision solely on what that emergency is. And typically within a short amount of time, so you don't have the luxury to educate yourself on what's available. Well,
and you just touched on the word educate, and I'd like to pick up on that after we come back from our break here. We're coming up on a break, Catherine, but it sounds to me like education, as you've put it, is the most powerful tool in the senior's toolbox, and we need to touch on that when we come back from the break. We are talking with Catherine Owens, and we are going to come back after the break and pick up on more about the education. You are listening to September Living. We'll be right back after these messages.
To learn more about each week's show and our guest, visit SeptemberLiving.com and click on the radio show button. We want to hear from you. Go to the contact page and send us an email or reach out to us with questions or comments by phone at 800-652-7288. Prompt number 801, 800-652-7288. Prompt number 801. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back, and thanks for listening to September Living, a show for us baby boomers and beyond. And we are talking with Catherine Owens, author of Be Your Own Hero, Senior Living Decisions Simplified. And Catherine, before the break, we started talking about education. Is it not truly one of the most powerful tools that they can have in their toolbox?
Definitely, it is the most powerful tool in the sense that it gives people a sense of control. It gives people a sense of understanding. It can help eliminate fears, social stigmas, concerns that their wishes won't be honored. So taking control and taking the time to educate yourself really allows you to fully understand what's available and make decisions based on your wants and needs.
Right, and what you were talking about, Catherine, in your book, I'm looking at Chapter 2, or Concept 2, as you put it there, and that's called motivating factors. And I think that is what you're saying right there, is to get your thoughts together and look at and see what's out there and do some research, and as you say, be proactive rather than reactive. So chat a little bit about some of those motivating factors.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, most people typically wait until something is going on in their day-to-day life that's not working. Something is motivating them to think, I need to start looking into what's available and what services are available. So when I say motivating factors, unfortunately, senior living services is something people don't want to talk about typically or look into until they have to. So the motivating factor is what would be causing them to look into services. By understanding what that is, whether it's needing more socialization, needing support in medication management, if someone is not driving as much or limiting their driving because of visual concerns, whatever it is that they're hoping to gain by making a change, that's what I tell people to focus on. That's going to help them as they navigate the different services available, decide what is going to meet those concerns and what is going to give them that additional support that they're hoping to gain.
Catherine, what would you say the percentage or the number of people are who, whereby the adult children are very much involved in the decision-making process?
You know, it really depends on the level of needs a person has. As someone's needs increase, the less likely they are to be making the decision on their own. I would say I typically find probably 80%, if not higher, of people going through this decision process have their children involved in the decision process. And it's a tough balance because the adult child doesn't want to overstep their bounds in making these difficult decisions, yet the senior typically can't make this decision on their own just because of the magnitude. They want the support of their children, and sometimes they need the support of their children to make this decision.
Well, and there's no doubt about that. I think that the adult children in many cases do benefit, although there has been cases I'm sure you're aware of too, where they tend to muddy up the waters and don't help make the best and right decisions for the parents. Have you seen that occur?
And that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. And I think that's, again, goes back to being proactive and educating yourself and making some of these decisions ahead of time so that when the time comes, your children know what your wishes are. And there are times when people really have waited too long to get appropriate and safe support that unfortunately the child has to come in and make these decisions. And again, that goes back to the perception that the fear of losing control. Take control. Take control and educate yourself and make these decisions before the time comes. And that can eliminate some of that need of the children having to make decisions for you.
And based on the fear, would you say, Catherine, that in those instances, when decisions are being made based out of fear, are they more so based out of people that just aren't educated enough to make the right decisions, or are they based out of people being given bad information and being put into fear?
I'd say it's a little bit of all of the above. When I talk about basing decisions out of fear, a lot of times people will pick the least resistance, and that's human nature. All of us are afraid of change. Everyone is afraid of the unknown, not knowing what to expect. And so by not educating yourself, by not understanding the services, it's easier to make a decision on what you do know. It's easier to make a decision on what's going to allow you to stay where you're at, to stay with what's comfortable. If someone's afraid of losing their independence by leaving their house, they're going to first look at decisions that will allow them to stay at their home and give them that perceived sense of independence and that perceived sense of maintaining control. So that's where I go back to making the decision based on the motivating factor. A lot of people will take the easiest route and put what I call Band-Aids on, but they're not addressing the cause of what's causing the concern.
And Catherine Owens, at the beginning of this segment, naturally, we talked about education, and we've kind of moved on to the concept number 4 that you have in your book, Be Your Own Hero, Senior Living Decisions Simplified. And that concept 4 is, which is like a chapter 4, I guess, understanding key influencers. And you've touched upon that very well. And I like the way you put it together where you have a statement, accept thought process. And that process is, I can't make decisions for my parents, but then reality, your decision-making role may adjust depending on need. Speak a little bit more about what else may be in that particular concept.
There's a lot of things that go into how people make decisions. That could be how someone has always made decisions. For example, a couple may make decisions a certain way for X amount of years that they've been married. Sometimes the male is the one that is the primary decision maker. If he passes and the widow, who has never been a primary influencer in the decisions, is now left with having to make all of these significant decisions, it may be too overwhelming for her. So one thing I tell families is to look as a family at how significant decisions have been made in the past. A lot of times, kids will take over finances, they'll take over managing medications, they'll take over paying bills. So they're taking over a lot of the day-to-day decisions for their parents. But when it comes to this decision, which is said to be one of the hardest, most difficult decisions that seniors will ever make, they put the decision back on their parents. So a lot of times I will ask the adult child, what decisions are you currently making for your parents? And I'll ask the seniors that as well. What decisions are you having your children make for you? And another question.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Catherine.
Well, another question to ask that the adult children can ask their parents is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely do you feel you will be able to make this decision with everything involved? Sometimes just the whole thought of downsizing their house, of cleaning out their house of 50 years, all of the details that go in making this type of transition are typically what the overwhelming part is.
Catherine,
so if a child
we're gonna pick up on that as soon as we come back from a break. We're coming up on a break here, so we're going to talk about the decision-making process here and continue with that as soon as we come back from a break. We're listening to Catherine Owens. You're with September Living. We're coming up on a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Hey, this is Terry D. Gary B. and I enjoy visiting with you each and every week. We want to hear from you. Post your thoughts, questions, ideas, recipes, whatever floats your boat on our Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/September Living. That's facebook.com/September Living. Now it's time for more September Living. Welcome back, and thanks for listening to September Living, a show enhancing us baby boomers and beyond. We're actually talking with Catherine Owens, although we are listening as well. And Catherine is the author of Be Your Own Hero, Senior Living Decisions Simplified.
And I think, Terry D., we want to make sure that the listeners go to our website, septemberliving.com, and click on at the top of the page, the menu, and you'll see radio show as it drops down. And when you click onto that, you're going to go right to the page that has all the contact information on Catherine Owens and all the information, in fact, that we've talked about here today. We'll highlight a lot of the major factors that she brings out that are major things that you really should know in this decision-making process and to understand that process. So all that information, her website, her contact information will be on that page, Terry D. So listeners can go there again to our website to get a lot more information on Catherine.
And there's so much, Gary B. And Catherine has so much information to share with our listeners. And before the break, we were talking about the decision-making process. And Catherine, can you continue to touch on that for our listeners?
Well, before we left for the break, we were talking about the key influencers in the decision process and the role that they play and how that role can vary based on what the needs are. And what I was talking about is that adult children often play a role in this decision. They're typically already making decisions or playing a role in other decisions. But as a family, to sit down and talk about how decisions have been made in the past and understanding what type of decisions they're trying to make going forward.
Okay. I know that, in your book, there's really a simplified process in getting to what we all want, which is the best decision for all of us, for ourselves, for our parents, for our loved ones. And so in that process, Gary B., what's the next step?
Right. After we just touched upon, again, the decision-making process, a lot of the individuals that are key influencers on the process here. And the next concept that, Catherine, that you've put together is engaged living. And we have to accept that thought process because people say, I'm not a social person and I keep myself active. Expand on that statement there.
Yes, most people believe that the only time to start looking into a senior living community is when they physically or medically can no longer take care of themselves. And their biggest fear being that they don't want to lose independence. There have been a lot of studies that have shown that social engagement, emotional well-being, all of those things play a role in people staying active, which is going to allow them to stay physically more independent and healthier overall. So there's a lot of benefit to making a move or making decisions that would allow someone to stay engaged socially, emotionally, that are going to allow them to actually maintain their greatest want, and that's staying active, healthy, and independent.
And when you talk about that, we look at our individuals, our parents, our relatives, whoever it may be. Social interaction is so vital. Kind of touch on that as well.
Social interaction is vital at any age. And again, there's been a lot of studies on that. So all of us have peers that we share our day with, that we narrate the details of our day. And having peers that are going through the same stages that we are, that are going through the same types of decisions, the same losses, the same celebrations, being able to share those with others that understand, it's significant. It doesn't replace the relationships that we have with our children or with our family, but it adds a level of emotional well-being that is critical at every stage in our life.
And I think you're exactly right, and I know you're exactly right on that, because it affects the health, and you're only as good as you think you are. And if you don't have a high esteem of yourself, and other people look down on you and maybe don't help you become healthy in the mind, the body is going to react to that as well.
Correct. There's a lot of things. People need to have a sense of purpose. We as humans need to have a reason to get up every day and to get dressed. We need to have a sense of being, a sense of community, sense of belonging. All of those things are going to help with emotional well-being. Isolation tends to lead to depression, which is very significant with seniors in the senior population, which leads to lack of motivation to get up and to be active and to do things. So people start to sit around all day. They start to lose mobility. They start to lose cognitive decline. There's studies that have shown that the mobility rates, the lack of mobility rates, increase significantly when there is not social decline, that cognitive decline increases significantly when there is not the emotional well-being and the social interaction. So all of those are critical to staying active and healthy and independent.
And Catherine, this is, really a perfect segue from Concept 5, which is engaging living. Concept 6, calculating the real cost. There's obviously a cost factor for everything, but what is Concept 6? What is it about, and how does that help and affect people in their decision-making process?
So cost is the number one thing that people ask about when they finally inquire into senior living. The first thing they want to know is, how much does it cost? A lot of times, there's a lot of intangibles that you can't put a cost on. So that would be that social engagement. That would be that sense of peace of mind, of knowing that there's someone there. So it's difficult to just put a dollar sign on what the cost is for senior living. But a lot of times, if you're just looking at the monetary cost, most of the time people have a house that's paid off at this stage, and so they think, well, my house is paid for. I don't want to start paying a monthly rent for a senior living community. A lot of times, if you go through and just calculate what you're paying for homeowners' dues, renters' insurance, utilities, food, a lot of times people have support coming in to do landscaping and housekeeping. All of those things, once you add them up, typically are pretty close to what the cost for senior living would be. But on top of that, you're gaining those intangibles such as peace of mind, care, sense of community, emotional well-being. So it's really hard to just have it be dollars to dollars. The other thing is the cost that it has to your health and your well-being by not having the appropriate services in place. Well,
and that makes complete sense. And like you said, it's hard to put a price or a cost on certain intangibles, but when you add them all up, now that you're talking about this, I'm just sitting here thinking, Catherine, you got food every day, you've got electricity every day, you got television, telephone. All of these things will add up, and a lot of them will already be taken care of in the cost of a living facility, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I've had a lot of people do that exercise where in the book, I suggest that people list out what their monthly expenses are and compare them to what is included in their monthly expenses of a senior living community. And more often than not, it's a pretty close comparison in cost.
I bet that's a pretty eye-opening experience as well, because I bet you a lot of people are for the first time really realizing what their monthly expenses are. They make these payments, they just don't know what it all really comes out to, do they?
Correct. I had a gentleman that thought because his house was paid off, he could not wrap his head around paying for a senior living community. And when I had him go through that exercise, he was paying over $1,000 a month just to have somebody bring in prepared meals.
Wow.
So that alone was a significant chunk of money that he was going to now save by being in a senior living community.
We're speaking with Catherine Owens, and we're coming up on a break, Catherine, and in the next segment, I'd like to touch on Concept 7, Senior Living Options. Is that okay?
That would be wonderful.
Okay. Well, if anybody needs information, go to our website, go to the top of the page, click on the radio show, and you will find all of the information for Catherine Owens, for her book, and all of Catherine's information is there. And we will be taking a break, coming back and talking more with Catherine Owens right after these messages. You're listening to September Living. Hey, this is Terry D. Gary B. and I enjoy visiting with you each and every week. We want to hear from you. Post your thoughts, questions, ideas, recipes, whatever floats your boat on our Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/September Living. That's facebook.com/September Living. Now it's time for more September Living. Welcome back to September Living, a show for us baby boomers and beyond. And we're listening and talking with Catherine Owens, author of Be Your Own Hero, Senior Living Decisions Simplified. And Gary B., Catherine's got so much information for our listeners.
Well, yeah, at the beginning of the show, naturally, we talked about her background over 10 years in this industry, understanding the process of when our loved ones need to maybe have some additional help and what we need to do, being proactive rather than reactive. Because again, as Catherine had mentioned throughout the show here today, is that when you have to make a decision on the money right now, your decision-making process, your thinking, your mentality just goes astray.
It's flawed.
So
yeah.
it is. So you need to stretch this out. And in her book, she has 9 or 8 chapters. She calls them concepts, which is perfect, that goes into detail on the process that you should go. So individuals should get that book, and as you mentioned on our website, you'll be able to get the information, but get the book to at least understand the process. And she's done so well here today, just kind of speaking about that, and I think we're ready for Concept 7, Terry D.
And we are, because this concept is so important. Options, senior living options. And Catherine, how important is that people understand they have options?
Well, it's critical, and because people typically wait until there is that emergency or there is that crisis, they haven't allowed themselves to understand really what services are available and what the scope of those services are. I think every service, whether it's home care to skilled nursing, provides a certain value, and there's a certain level of what they can do and what they cannot do. So understanding what resources are available and when to utilize them will help them make the best decision possible.
And that is a very, very good segment there, I should say, concept there too, because again, a lot of individuals don't realize all the options that are available out there. Naturally, the number one is to stay in the home because that is more comfortable for individuals. But there are other options out there, and researching those, as you've done in your 10 years, and also you do quite well in your book here, that is a perfect one. And then as we move on to the last chapter, the last concept, and it's making an informed decision. Now, right here with everything that we've talked about here today, now is the time that you have to make that decision, and you got to be aggressive with it, and you've got to be confident that you're doing the right thing, for your loved one here.
Correct. Another big misconception people have with senior living services is that every place is the same. And I'm just going to touch on assisted living is an easy example to use for that. Most people look for the cheapest place out there because they assume that they're all the same. Every place provides the same basic services, but how they provide those services and at what level they provide the services is going to make the difference with your day-to-day satisfaction. So it's important and it's critical to take the time to find out how each community provides the different services available.
Well, and this is really brings everything together here as you've educated people through each of these concepts or chapters down to this point, Catherine, and getting them to the point where knowledge is power. And so then they're asking questions, they're doing research, they're at a point where they're able to gather the information to make the right and best decisions for themselves or for their loved ones. And that gets down to looking at the different communities, asking questions, touring the communities, and determining, what's best for them, for themselves.
Correct. One of the reasons I felt really strongly about writing this book was for this specific concept in itself. A lot of people don't know not only what to ask when they start looking, but they don't know how to ask the questions. So you can call any community and ask them if they provide 3 meals a day, if they provide nurse oversight, if they provide a maintenance-free lifestyle. Every single community will give you the same answer. So it really doesn't help you determine which one provides that service the best. So this chapter really helps people know how to break down each service, how to ask the questions that are going to help them understand how a community is providing services. That's
great. Well, Catherine, what would you like to leave our listeners with here?
I'd say the most important thing is that the best decision is an educated decision. Take the time to be your own advocate, to be your own hero, to educate yourself on what the services are before you need them. Even if you never need the services, you've taken the time to take control and educate yourself on what's available should you need it.
And to get more information about Catherine, her book, and all of this great information that she shared today, go to our website, go to the top of the page, click on Radio Show, and there you will find Catherine Owens. You'll find her website. You'll find her email address, and you really need to take the time to do this for yourself and for your loved ones, because there's so much information in this book that you can learn from, and it really then empowers people to go out and make the best and right decisions for themselves. And Catherine, we really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on the show, and it's been great to be able to discuss this important decision process with you.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and there's this great information, and look forward, Catherine, to your next book. Again, this book that Catherine has written that she spoke about this past hour has been Be Your Own Hero, Senior Living Decisions Simplified. And she has gone through 8 different concepts. So anyway, we do thank you again, Catherine, and again, as I mentioned, look forward to your next book coming up.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. And Terry D., again, individuals can't put their heads in the sand when it comes to taking care of our elders and individual family members or even friends. You need to be aware, and again, I think Catherine did a super job to make a process here, to understand the process here, and just kind of enlightens individuals out there to what they need to be aware of.
Well, and Gary B., you're absolutely right. And she right off the bat, she pointed out one of the very important things, and that is people are reactive. And if we start being proactive, it really does make a huge difference in our decision-making process, a very positive one. And I know for myself, when I'm being reactive, I don't make the best decisions. You make whatever decisions are available, or sometimes decisions get made for you, and we don't want that.
Right, and that's something that really came to head here as she mentioned, the different cycles here, the different key influencers that are out there in this process, and everybody's not going to get along, so you have to get it out in the open at the beginning. This way, there's no animosity or
talk it out.
And the siblings, they can be worst enemies sometimes. So you got to get it on the table and get it all worked out. And in the long run, naturally, it's definitely going to help out. And again, I urge our listeners to go to our website and get a lot more information concerning Catherine Owens' book there.
For my broadcast partner, Gary B., that's all from me, Terry D. Thanks for listening to September Living.
You've been listening to the September Living Show. Podcasts are available, and you can join us.